Essential standard number 6 is quadratic modeling. You can be certain that the questions are always talking about the same features of the graph. So when you first learned about a parabola, you learned that a parabola had a vertex. You learned that a parabola had a y-intercept, and a parabola had, most of the time, 2 x-intercepts. And all these questions that you're going, wait, what are they talking about? Are probably talking about what? The vertex, the y-intercept, and the x-intercept. So understanding how to find these, first off, is important. How do I find a vertex? How do I find a y-intercept? How do I find an x-intercept? Then I will talk to you about, well, what's the question sound like when it's asking for this, okay? So first off, quadratic means ax squared plus bx plus c. And the easiest thing to find in a parabola is your y-intercept, because your y-intercept is always c. When they talk about something with the ball going up and down, or the rocket, or the balloon, or whatever it is, C is the starting place. What is the initial height of the rocket before it's launched? How high is the ball in the air before it's being thrown? Whatever. The starting place. Okay? The x-intercepts are the hardest thing to find, because you have to make your way through the quadratic formula. The x-intercepts have to do with the ball reaching what spot?
Zero. The ground.
The ground. Okay? It's about when does the ball hit the ground? When does the submarine resurface to sea level? When does the rocket, return from outer space? So most of the time they're talking about the ground. Okay? The question would be, how long does it take for the rock to reach the ground? All right? Finally, we have the vertex. The vertex has 2 parts to it. It has an x and a y. So there's 2 different questions that they can ask. They can ask you a question about the x value of the vertex, or they can ask you a question about the y value of the vertex. Now, how do you find the x value of the vertex? I heard some of you saying it earlier. Negative b over 2a. That formula, which comes from the very beginning of the quadratic formula, will always give you the x value of your vertex. How do you find the y value of the vertex? Plug in x. So, plug in x to find y. Now, anytime you see a parabola, if someone were to say, look at this parabola, chances are your eye will go right there. It will see the parabola's what? Vertex. It also represents the parabola's what? This particular spot. The parabola's minimum value, the lowest point. If you looked at this parabola, I'm a terrible drawer, you automatically see the vertex. It also represents the parabola's what? Maximum or highest point. So, when you hear a question like, what is the maximum height the ball reaches? Or how long does it take the rocket to reach its highest point? You pay close attention to highest. And that tells you I'm looking for my vertex. Now, let's apply this to a real problem. Let's say that someone tells you that we're shooting off a rocket and the path of the rocket follows the equation h of t equals negative 4t squared plus 16t plus 10, where t is time in seconds and h is height in feet. If we wanted to ask you a question about the y-intercept, what would the question be? What is the initial height of the rocket? That means the y-intercept. What word are we recognizing? Initial, starting, beginning, some word like that. What type of question would be talking about the x-intercepts? How long does it take the rocket to return to the ground or reach the ground? How long does it take the rocket to reach Earth or the ground? I'm not very good at making up these types of questions. Okay? This is a question about what? This is a question about time. Can you see that time is x?
Yes.
Can you see that y is what? Height. If they ask about the initial height of the rocket, they're asking a question about y. If they ask a question about time, they're asking a question about x. Now, what are the two questions that would be the x value of the vertex and the y value of the vertex? What would the question be about the x value of the vertex? How long does it take the rocket? Does it take the rocket to reach its highest point? Get it? What did you hear in the question? Highest. What else did you hear? How long? That means time. That means x, highest point. X value of the vertex. What's the question going to ask about the y value? What is the highest? What is the greatest height the rocket reaches? What do you hear in that question? Height and greatest. Maximum y value. Okay, so what is the initial height of the rocket here? 10 feet. How long does it take to reach the ground? Unfortunately, that's going to take a while to answer. The quadratic formula takes a long time. How long does it take the rocket to reach its highest point? What do? Negative b over 2a. What's the answer?
Negative 2 seconds. Oh, 2 seconds.
2 seconds. Does everybody see where 2 came from?
Yes.
Negative 16, negative b, over 2a, over negative 8. Negative 16 over negative 8, what's that? 2. How long does it take the rocket to reach its highest point? 2 seconds.
It's negative b over 2a, right?
Yes. What is the greatest height of the rocket? What do? Plug in 2. Plug in 2 into that equation.